10 Famous Outlaws of the Wild West. James Brown Miller. Born in 1861, James Brown Miller was one of the most notorious and violent outlaws of the Wild West. He began his career as a Texas mounted rifleman before becoming a professional assassin and outlaw, reportedly killing 12 people in gunfights. However, the true number of people killed by this man was probably between 20 and 50. Miller was a psychopathic killer whose criminal activities apparently began with the murder of his grandparents at the age of 8, however, he was never prosecuted. The outlaw later left a trail of death and grief in Texas and surrounding states. Miller was eventually executed without trial in 1909, along with 3 other men, in Ida, Oklahoma, by a mob of angry residents who were angry at his assassination of a former deputy U.S. Marshal. Etta Place. Etta Place was a member of Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch and was associated with Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, known as the Sundance Kid. She was a mysterious woman, and historians are uncertain about her real name, time, and place of birth. Longabaugh and her fellow outlaw, Butch Cassidy, decided to start a new life in South America. So on February 29, 1902, Etta Place and the 2 men left New York on the cargo ship Soldier Prince. When they arrived in Argentina, they bought land in the province of Chubut. However, it is not known what happened to Etta after that. It is said that she moved to Denver, while others say that she returned to South America and was killed in Bolivia with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Sam Bass. Sam Bass, born July 21, 1851 in Mitchell, Indiana, was one of the most iconic train robbers and outlaws of the 19th-century American Wild West. He left home at the age of 18 and went to Texas, where he befriended Joel Collins in 1874. 2 years later, Bass and Collins moved north to drive cattle, but began robbing stagecoaches. In 1877, they stole $65,000 worth of gold coins from a Union Pacific train. Bass managed to escape the Texas Mounted Rifles until a member of his gang tipped off the authorities. A year later, Bass and his men planned to rob a Williamson County bank, but were caught by Deputy Sheriff A. W. Grimes. Grimes was shot and killed when he approached the gunmen to demand they surrender their handguns. A gunfight ensued, and when Bass tried to escape, he was shot by Texas Rangers and later died during his arrest. Bill Doolin. William Bill Doolin was an American outlaw and bandit who formed the Doolin-Dalton Gang. He was born in Arkansas in 1858 and was never as ruthless or dangerous a criminal as some of his associates. In 1881, Doolin moved west and worked on the large ranch of Oscar D. Housel in Oklahoma. Housel took a liking to the young Arkansas man, taught him to write and do simple arithmetic, and eventually appointed him as the unofficial foreman on the ranch. Doolin was a reliable and efficient man there. In the last decade of the 19th century, he began robbing banks and trains. The outlaw was known as a meticulous planner, so he was never caught red-handed or severely punished. Devlin and his newly formed gang continued to commit increasingly daring robberies until increasing pressure from law enforcement forced them into hiding in New Mexico in 1895. In 1896, when a group of soldiers finally caught up with the outlaw in Lawton, Oklahoma, he apparently decided not to be captured alive and, despite being outnumbered, drew his gun. Eventually, a barrage of shotgun and rifle fire killed the notorious robber at the age of 38. Belle Starr. It's rare for a wealthy girl to abandon her comfortable city life and become an outlaw, but Belle Starr was different in every way. Mira Mabel Shirley Starr, later known as Belle and eventually the Bandit Queen, was born in Missouri and raised in a wealthy, pro-Confederate family. She was just a teenager in 1864 when their home became a hideout for associates of Jesse James and Bond Younger. Starr later married Jim Reed, Bruce Younger, and a Cherokee Indian named Sam Starr, all outlaws, in 1866, 1878, and 1880, respectively. From then on, Belle Starr is said to have worked as a front for bootleggers and sheltered fugitives. Starr's life of crime ended when he was shot in the back while returning to his farm from a store, and he died on February 3, 1889. Although a rival outlaw, along with Starr's former lover, wife, and son, were suspected of the murder, his killer was never identified. John Wesley Hardin. Born in Bonham, Texas in 1853, John Wesley Hardin was the son of a Methodist minister. He displayed a criminal streak from an early age, stabbing a classmate at school and killing a black man during an argument at the age of 15. He later claimed to have killed several Union soldiers as a Confederate sympathizer. Hardin committed this violent act out of hatred for freed slaves. Just a few weeks later, the outlaw killed 3 soldiers who were trying to arrest him. He then moved to Navarro County, where he became a schoolteacher. He also worked as a cowboy and poker player, but he killed another person during a gambling dispute. Hardin killed more than a dozen other people and surrendered in 1872. However, the criminal outlaw escaped from prison and joined the American anti-Reformation movement, continuing to kill others. Fleeing the law with his wife and children, he was captured by Texas Rangers in Florida and sentenced to 25 years in prison for the murder of a deputy sheriff. After serving his sentence, Hardin mysteriously entered the legal profession and hired hitmen to kill one of his clients who was having an affair with his wife. On August 19, 1895, one of those hitmen, John Selman, apparently shot and killed him at the Acme Saloon for not paying his wages. Harry Alonzo Longabaugh. Born in 1867, Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, better known as the Sundance Kid, was a member of Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch in the Wild West. He probably met Cassidy, real name Parker, after his release around 1896. Longabaugh was the best shot and fastest gunslinger of the gang, which operated in the Rocky Mountains and the desert regions of the American West during the 1880s and 1890s. In 1901, the Sundance Kid traveled with Butch Cassidy and his friend Etta Place to New York and then to South America to start a ranch in the Argentine province of Chubut. 5 years later, he and his accomplice returned to robbery, robbing banks, trains, and mines in Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, and Peru. The 2 criminals were allegedly shot dead in Bolivia in 1908, although historians have not confirmed this. Butch Cassidy. Butch Cassidy was born Robert Leroy Parker on April 13, 1886, in Beaver, Utah, the first of 13 children. His parents, who were Mormons, had immigrated to Utah from England in 1856. Leroy is believed to have been a rancher until 1884, but in 1889, he and 3 other men committed their first crime. They robbed a bank of $20,000. Their organized robbery demonstrated the characteristics that would become the signature of the Wild Bunch. After that, Butch Cassidy went on the run and roamed the frontier. The Wild Bunch robbed banks and trains in South Dakota, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Nevada, taking home large sums of money. For example, it is estimated that they made off with $70,000 in a train robbery on the Rio Grande in New Mexico. However, it seemed that the golden age of Butch and his gang was over, as a large group of law enforcement officers were looking for them. So Cassidy and Longabaugh decided to flee to Argentina. Eventually, the 2 outlaws resumed robbing trains and employees' salaries until they were killed in 1908. Billy the Kid. Most of the time, a nickname like Kid wouldn't make a person seem ruthless, but that wasn't the case with Billy. The outlaw, whose real name was Henry McCarthy, was apparently born in New York in 1859 and had a turbulent childhood. His father died at the end of the American Civil War, and his mother contracted tuberculosis around the same time, forcing the family to move west. Billy's life of crime began in 1877, when he pulled out his gun and shot a civilian blacksmith who was harassing him at Grant's Army camp in Arizona. After the incident, McCarthy was arrested by the camp guard, but he escaped before the local marshal could arrive. Now a fugitive and unable to find honest work, Billy met another outlaw named Jesse Evans, the leader of the Boys. With nowhere to go and the fear of suicide in the wild, lawless land, the young fugitive was forced to join Evans' gang. After committing numerous crimes and later being involved in the infamous Lincoln County War, Billy's name soon became a hot topic in the tabloids. Law enforcement officers then offered a $500 reward for anyone who could capture the outlaw. The fugitive was eventually shot and killed on June 14, 1881, by Sheriff Pat Garrett of New Mexico. Jesse Woodson James. Jesse Woodson James was an outlaw, bank and train robber, guerrilla, and leader of the James Younger Gang. He was born in 1847 and grew up in the Little Dixie area of western Missouri. He and his slave-owning family shared the same outlook as the people of the American South. As the leader of his gang, James played a key role in their successful robberies of trains, stagecoaches, and banks. Interestingly, he is often referred to as the Robin Hood of the Wild West, but there is little evidence that he ever helped the poor. Of course, John Newman Edwards, a newspaper editor and supporter of the Confederacy, helped to perpetrate and spread the legend of James being Robin Hood. "We are not thieves, but bold robbers," the outlaw wrote in a letter published by Edwards. "I am proud of this name, for Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, and Napoleon Bonaparte were also bold robbers." In 1881, the governor of Missouri offered a reward of $10,000 for the capture of Jesse and Frank James. Shortly thereafter, on April 3, 1882, the notorious outlaw was shot in the back by one of his accomplices, Robert Ford, at the age of 34. Ford was convicted of murder for the crime, but was pardoned by the governor.